Hello, dear perceptive souls. This is Bevin Niemann. I am a life purpose coach for intuitive empaths, lightworkers, and mystics. And may I add, today I add those who hold the frequency of optimism in our world. And I'm also the co-founder of 1millionempaths.com, which is a beautiful online global sanctuary for those who are meeting their tribe, mastering their gifts, and amplifying our work together in the world through making a difference. So let's dive in, because what came to me today was such a beautiful, beautiful message and a realization about a part of myself that I didn't really recognize, but I've been holding since my childhood. And I watched this movie called Tomorrowland, which is a Disney movie. And it touched my heart so much. And I don't want to give away the storyline, but essentially the entire theme is, how do we hold the frequency of optimism? And when we look out into our world right now, we might see that that could be a really difficult space, right, to keep yourself. Everything looks like it's crumbling apart. It's in chaos, all this divisiveness. And yet, there's a reason that we came here. There's a reason that we are strong and resilient enough to actually witness and hold space and mirror that energy and just say, okay, I'm creating this container, and regardless of what happens in my own life and in the world itself, I am going to continue to hold the frequency of optimism. It is our biggest opportunity and our greatest challenge at the same time. And pretty much everyone who's listening to this will have had some really difficult personal struggles in your life. And we might hold some of that energy of perhaps relationships aren't safe, or that energy of perhaps the world isn't safe, or perhaps I can't handle all the energy that's coming in, or I don't know how to hold this frequency. And yet the reason that you're here watching this video, or you're inside my community, or I've been doing coaching work with you, and the reason that there's so many light worker groups and empath groups out there is because we are coming together. We are finding each other, right? Those that hold the frequency of optimism in the future for this world. And we came here specifically at this time to hold that frequency, and not just hold it, but to witness what's happening and say, okay, this is the contrast that I need. We don't want that. We definitely don't want this, right? And all these contrasts are showing up. There's lots of contrasts that are showing up right now in our world to show us what is not working. And these are extremely valuable. So we don't want to turn away. We want to face, like, head on. We want to look at those frequencies and go, okay, those are just a frequency. And I don't mean to minimize anyone's experience. I'm not minimizing anyone's trauma. I'm not minimizing all of the history we've had with racism in this world and sexism and all the other things that are going on. That's not what this frequency is about. It's not optimism like, la la la, I'm just going to skip around and there's rainbows and unicorns. I like rainbows and unicorns, but that's not what this is about. So this is about being an optimist and a realist. So the realist part of ourselves looks at the world, we watch, we witness, and then we seek out and we find others like us, and we begin gathering. Because the more that we gather, the more that we make those connections, the more amplified that frequency of optimism is, that we believe that there is a different timeline available to us. So let me get into the cards that came, because they're extremely, extremely powerful today. And the first card that came was perception. Right? You see this person here, looking out into the world. There's sacred geometry. There's the peace, the dove coming out. Here's the white buffalo, which in many Native American cultures, indicated the changing and the turning of an era. So the white buffalo would come only at specific times. And you see that not only is there the white buffalo that is the elder and the one who has already been here, but then there's a new white buffalo being born that's being gestated here. And you can even see it looks like sort of a wolf eye coming in. And so this is our perception. You know, when you are a perceptive soul, what makes it challenging to hold the frequency of optimism sometimes is that we see everything, right? And we feel everything. But this is our gift, right? So we can either decide that we want to really stay in that energy and kind of, you know, it's fine to sort of go down into that energy for just a little bit, see what's there, read those frequencies. Okay, here's what's happening. And I could feel after this recent lunar eclipse, there was so much tension, so much anger and rage. And it doesn't mean that still doesn't exist, but it existed on such an intense level that it was really challenging for me and for many other empaths and light workers to be present to that. It took a lot of rest. It took a lot of self-care, and it's still going to take a lot of self-care because, as I keep saying, we're in a marathon, not a sprint. Optimism is a continuous energy frequency that we are vibrating out. And it has to maintain sort of a steady flow. You know, if it like wanes, then things, you know, move in a different direction. And it doesn't mean that I'm saying you are personally responsible for the future of the world. That was one of the messages of the movie, is that it takes more than one person. It takes many, many people. But this is our ability here, is to perceive that we are changing into a new era, and we're witnessing. We're standing and witnessing, right? And the card that came out with that is what is already within you. You have that power to hold that frequency. This is transformation, right? Sacred geometry, the butterflies emerging from the cocoon, transforming. This is our world, right? 1 and a 7 makes an 8. It's coming into balance, balance between the masculine and feminine, balance between the individual and the collective, balance between the earth and its people. You know, there's so many balance points, and we're holding that frequency with each other. There's a whole grid of us, you know, holding this frequency, and we already have this ability to do it. We're just awakening to that. And, you know, and sometimes when we look out into the world, or we look at our own personal journey here as a human being, we get into grief. You know, here's the moon. There's a fullness here, right? We just had the full moon, a full activation of that grief cycle, you know, and a lot of people were really expressing that through the throat chakra. You know, just finally all these emotions that they'd been holding down and pushing down for so long could no longer be contained. And that is a really healthy process. This is a purging. This is a cleansing. This is a baptism, you know, a new period of time. And the card that came from this is to trust, you know, your inner knowing. Whatever that healing journey is for you personally, it is reflected within you. It's reflected out into the collective. There are so many people that are going on this healing journey, and it's been with the shelter in place and COVID-19 and the economy, and then, you know, the uprising against systemic racism, all of these different aspects since we've had, you know, since the beginning of 2020. And the 2020 is a number 4 year, which is we are striving to come back into balance. We are striving to create a new structure, right? A new structure, a new system, a new society, a new set of values. And that requires us to trust inside. You know, when you start to go within and you feel like, you know, maybe I am one of those people that hold that frequency. You know, what do I do? What do I do, right? What you've always been doing would be my answer. So you've been doing this since you were a child. If you think back, you were a person that tackled things, took things on, wanted to be, you know, one of the helpers, wanted to spread this light and positivity, regardless of the circumstances. You are always, always seeking an opportunity to do that. And this is about perseverance, right? So we think about perseverance and we think, man, it's like back-breaking labor. You see this person, they're just bent over. And it really, it's really like this continuous birthing process, right? And right now it's really challenging. You know, it's really challenging. This reminds me of many of the images of actual, you know, slaves who were forced to be compliant and forced to, you know, serve someone else and be owned as property. And this really speaks to like the perseverance that it took, the spirit that it took for people to endure that. You know, recognizing perseverance is actually facing what's happened in the world, not looking away, not spiritually bypassing, but actually looking at what's happened, actually acknowledging where we've been, and still at the same time holding that space for something much better, for something much more affirming. You see that there are some people here just looking at, like, here's the volcano, right? This is what it's felt like recently. The volcano, there's eruptions, there's, you know, the old systems and structures are being broken apart as we are, a lot of fire energy coming in through here. And perseverance is, you know, challenging. And this is where it requires us to take care of ourselves and to take care of each other in this process. And what we're doing is we're going against the grain. We're swimming in a different direction. And you can see here that these, you know, you think maybe these are fish, but they're actually birds, birds under the ocean. We envision something which is very different than what is the normal, than what is considered societal, you know, norms and compliance and all of those things. We're like, no, that's not how it's going to be. We want this peace, right? We want this peace. We want to begin to flap our wings, and we want to move that emotion, and we want to stir it up, and we're going to, you know, put our hand on the bottom of the ocean and stir that up like it's time. You know, we're stirring things. We're stirring a lot of things right now, and it's a good thing. And it takes perseverance, and it takes releasing your grief, and it takes looking at all of those aspects of things that you've held on to that are really not helping you to maintain that frequency anymore. And again, optimism is not, you know, prancing through paradise. Optimism is, we are here having an earthly experience, and therefore need to be very present to it. And we're looking at everything. We're not only looking at the negative things that are going on in our world, and those are so prevalent in our media and in our consciousness, but we're looking at, where are people helping? Where are two people healing? Where are, you know, communities starting to come together? Who is banding together? Who is saying no more, we're going to make a change? We're holding those frequencies, and we're acknowledging that, and we're communicating that as well. We're not just fighting against everything that we don't want, although that's an important piece. We are now beginning to turn, and this lunar eclipse helped us to turn that emotion and that passion and that perseverance into fighting for what we do want. And it's time for that. It's time. And when we do that, and we recognize the perseverance within ourselves, it takes an enormous amount of strength to hold an energy and a frequency of optimism in a world that does not really reward that at this point, right? It takes an enormous amount of energy and consciousness to be in gratitude, even when we see like everything kind of looks dead, you know, but underneath there's a huge root system. There's things happening, there's things growing. We're interconnected with all the other roots and all the other trees. There's wisdom in this rooting, right? And so when we get into this frequency of gratitude for what is already amazing, how we are already amazing, what you have been doing personally since you were a child, in every part of your life and every workplace you've ever been in, your family, with your friends, all of that frequency of optimism, positivity, peace, love, joy, whatever you resonate with, like being grateful, and then looking around and finding all the others, right? Finding all the others who are in that space as well. You know, and what happens when we do that is we come into inspiration. So we begin to see that like all these flowers are blossoming, and all of these bees are coming to pollinate, right? So it takes both the flowers and the pollinators to create this new hive, right? It's interesting because scientists have looked at the structure of bee and wasp nests and the particular geometric patterns and how they're all these cells, and there's actually an energy frequency that comes off of that, an energy frequency of high vibrational space. So when we're creating this honeycomb, right, this beautiful nectar for what comes next in our world, this is what we're doing, and we're not doing this by ourselves. It takes like an entire entire group of these bees, and bees, you know, hold that frequency of optimism and positivity and perseverance, right? They're always like, okay, I'm going to go get the pollen, I'm going to pollinate this, I'm going to bring it back, I'm going to make the honey, and we just keep making more honey. We just keep making more honey. And as we do that, we step into the truth of who we really are as light workers, as deeply connected spiritual beings. This is the truth of who we are, my friends. This is the power that you have and I have, and we collectively have, to manifest this new world. And what we focus on and what we connect with is just expansive, right? That's what the law of attraction tells us, is what we focus on expands. And so we have this activation, and we're holding this vision of a new planet, of a planet that is equitable, connected, loving, kind, compassionate, where every human being has their needs met. Every human being is treated as valuable, where we recognize ourselves as a part of the ecosystem. We're not just floating up here as a spiritual being, we're actually connected down into the earth. We have our feet and our roots into the earth, and we have our head in the heavens. Right? This is the truth of who we are. And when we do that, we begin to attract others who are also holding that frequency. You can see that together they're holding this frequency. Here's the beehive again, right? We're creating this sacred geometry. Look, she's rippling out her essence, you know. They're seeing each other, recognizing each other. So every single one of you who's watching this video, I recognize you. I recognize the work you've done, how you've persevered, and your perceptivity, and how you hold that frequency of optimism. We are holding that together. Something new is being born here, right? We're coming together. We're starting to gather and to be intersecting and creating that web of consciousness. And then what happens is we come into transformation. This is how transformation happens. One person at a time, healing that grief, that anger, that pain, any old mindsets that didn't serve you, any old wounds that you've been carrying where you didn't offer yourself or another forgiveness. Anything of that nature can be done to hold this frequency of optimism and frequency for our future. And as everyone begins to do that, we expand, right? We come into this expansive space. And everybody's doing it in a different way. Here's one person, you know, and here's another person, and here's another person. But we're all on this journey. And we begin to transform and create a world that works for everyone. And how does that happen? The word wants to be written. And the word is our speaking out. You see all this activation here at the throat chakra, this butterfly unfolding, right? The connection here, all of the light codes and all of this transformational energy coming down, the releasing of that grief, those old things that we don't really need to hold on to anymore. We don't want to look away. We don't want to deny our history. We're not going to deny our history on a collective level or on an individual level. It's just saying, I don't want to sit in that frequency anymore. I want to sit in the frequency of what is coming, of what I'm working to manifest. And this is a process of learning how to do that. And through that process, for me, that has been blogging, and now I'm making these videos and doing these readings. For someone else, that might be podcasting. For someone else, that might be writing books. For someone else, that might be teaching or coaching or using the language of the body through ecstatic dance. There's lots of ways that the word can be written. But when we put that vibration out there, we begin to speak and write and talk and have conversations about what's happening, what we envision, where we want to be going, what we want that world to look like. Again, not from a naive place, not from a place of looking away. We definitely want to look straight at what's happening. But we also, at the same time, simultaneously want to be looking at where are we going. And we want to gather with others. And we want to create this honeycomb. This beautiful, beautiful, sacred frequency that we're holding together. Look at all the frequencies that are coming in and out, right, of Earth right now. It is one of the most gorgeous times to be alive. It feels really challenging, but we came here for this purpose. We are equipped with our perception, with our communities, with this knowing inside of us of what is possible. I invite you, my friends, to hold that frequency. Hold it tightly. Offer it out. Take a moment to step out, whether that's on your social media feed or to someone in your family or a friend or a client. Just step out and hold that frequency and share that with them. Because this is where we're going. And we are the bees, and we are the flowers, and we are in deep gratitude for being here at this moment, in this time and space. Transformation is coming. It's happening every single minute, every single time. The more that you go within, the more that you begin to trust, the more you ask and you receive, the more that you can participate. And now, going against the grain, there are so many people doing this now that it doesn't feel as uncomfortable as it did. You can be open about who you are. It's safe and it's time. So thank you for being here. And if you want to connect with me on an individual basis, there's information about how to set up a coaching session. And you can also get some information about joining my online community, 1 Million Empaths. Love to see you again. Thank you so much for watching. And thank you for holding this frequency with me. I appreciate you. I honor you. I see you. We are in this together. Namaste.